Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm D-Man the Great, and I'm back here with another video. So, today, guys, I'm here to talk about the Sacramento Queens, the Kings, of course. And the Sacramento Kings are a franchise that hasn't necessarily been on the up and up. And it actually, if you go by most metrics, they've traditionally been one of the worst franchises of the last 20 years. And the only teams that have done less than them, or the same equivalent to them, are teams such as the Charlotte Hornets, or Orlando Magic haven't been anywhere since 2009. So the Orlando Magic, the Detroit Pistons of old. But the thing is, though, the difference in this case is the Sacramento Kings are continuously making bad decisions and not being a forward-thinking group or being a team that should be after better success and more success. So in this case, right, they just fired their head coach, Mike Brown, after perhaps the two most successful seasons that this franchise has had in the last 19 years. So the thing is the most success you've had in the last 19 years were 2 round 1 appearances and a season where you lost the play-in game, the 9-10 play-in game. So it's like that's the scenario here. If you look at the Sacramento Kings history, they haven't really went that far at all. Every year, I thought that they did better than they have done. And when you look at Basketball Reference, even in the DeMarcus Cousins years, they were still putrid. Like, they could barely get over 30 wins, even with DeMarcus Cousins. So it's like your best year outside of 2006, where you made the first round and lost. It was a year where you had Dave Yeager as your coach. He had his best season as the head coach of the Sacramento Kings. And you guys almost made the playoffs. Then you fired him. That doesn't make any sense. And it's like they so quick to run off a coach, right? But that's the thing is, here's where the problem starts, right? So they start this year. Let me go through the history of this. So Mike Brown, they just came to the Sacramento Kings in 22-23, right? And he turned that team from the worst in its division with a not so awesome roster, and he turned that into the greatest offense statistically at that point in the NBA. So it was an all-time offense. They made the 3rd seed in the West, which is the highest that they have been in anything since 2002, when they made the playoffs and almost won the championship. And it only took 48 wins to get there, right? So the thing is, in this case, he had the best season that they've had since 2006. 2006, they won 44 games. So that's a better year than 2006. They were 3rd seed in the West, and then they played a team in the Warriors who haven't lost in the playoffs since 2014. And the thing is, the only teams that they have lost to were in the NBA championship rounds were the Toronto Raptors, where they were heavily riddled with injuries, whereas Kevon Looney was broken down and beat up. You remember when actually that's one of my first videos on this channel, Kawhi Leonard had tried to drive to the basket and ran into Kevon Looney, sent him flying and hurt his ribs. Then you have Klay Thompson had an injury in the game 3 where Curry had to score 57 points to even be competitive in that game. And then you had Kevin Durant being out the entire series for the most part. And then Kevin Durant tearing his Achilles in game 6. Or game 3 or game 5 that he tore his Achilles in, where he tried to come back to lead them back down from 3-1. So the Warriors pretty much, no, that's not about the Warriors. The Sacramento Kings are lost to a team that only lost twice in the playoffs. They lost to the Cavaliers and the Raptors. And the thing is, the team they lost to last before that, the team they lost in the West to, was the 2014 Clippers before they became the best team in the NBA. So, in this case, Mike Brown, and then that's the thing about it too, is actually there's a Warriors tied to Mike Brown, but we'll get to that in a second when we go through Mike Brown's history real quick. So, you have a 48 win season, best season that you've had in almost 20 years. Then you had a 46 and 36 year, only 2 losses worse, but then you go from the first to the fourth in your division in that one little period, right? And 2 losses took you from the 3 seed one year to the 9 seed the next year. So that just goes to show you the name of the game, right? So then here comes this year, they trade in the offseason for DeMar DeRozan, and then they have a stretch where they lose 2 games to the Lakers. They have a negative record. They lose 2 games to the LA Lakers, and they lose 2 games to the Lakers. Then they play Detroit in the third night, and they decide that they've seen enough of Mike Brown, who's had the 2 most successful seasons his franchise has had in 20 years. In 20 years. They decide that they've had enough of him when he's been the most successful coach that they have had since Rick Adelman.
Depot on the beat.
And it's like, it's a disgrace that they traded him. And Mike Brown is a championship winning assistant and has had some of the greatest NBA teams of all time under his tutelage, if you go by the numbers, right? So look at it this way. He got 5 championships as an assistant under the Warriors and under the Spurs, right? And you think about it this way too. Go look at these numbers. Try these out for size. He won 66 games with LeBron James in 2009. He won 62 in 2010. He took that team to the finals in 2007. And before he joined the LeBron James Cavaliers, they did not make the playoffs. So in this case, right? So that's multiple successful stops. The only period of time where he wasn't successful whatsoever was his stint in the Lakers, but he led them to the playoffs with Kobe Bryant's last playoff appearance, where they lost to the young and up and coming, and in the NBA Finals, Thunder team, the last year they had James Harden. So that's success right there. And every time Mike Brown has won multiple championships. So he got 1 championship with San Antonio. Let me amend that real quick. So it's like, if you look at everything in totality, he actually was the head coach for 12 games of the 2017 Warriors run, because Steve Kerr had a little bit of health problems at the beginning of that playoffs. But mind you, a Neanderthal could have coached that team. But that's beside the point. And then that, mind you, so he was replacing the absolutely putrid Luke Walton, because Luke Walton was a bad coach from the jump, and he led the Warriors to 45-5. So anybody could have did the Warriors thing to take a little bit of credence from that. Luke Walton's a bad coach. Like the Lakers run he had, there was no scapegoating in that situation. Like a lot of people try to lie and say that the Lakers scapegoat coaches. Luke Walton missed the playoffs for the first time in like 20 years with LeBron James. So if that don't go to show you. And then he missed the playoffs the year before with Lonzo Ball in them. And then he proceeded to barely win it all with the Kings, with a solid roster of talent that when Mike Brown took over, they won 40 games. Now, they did make a trade in the middle of the 2022 year to trade Tyrese Halliburton for Domantas Sabonis, and Sabonis turned into one of the better players in the league in that move to Sacramento, and Tyrese Halliburton actually turned into one of the better players in the league last year, but his season this year has been up and down. Maybe he can return to form. I hope so, because you don't want to see a young player kind of go back to the dump like that. But it is what it is there. But this team has been unsuccessful at every turn. They're quick to fire a head coach. Like you fired your most successful head coach in the last 20 years in the middle of the year after a game where his star made a bad choice or fell asleep on defense. I shouldn't say a bad choice. He fell asleep on defense and then left amazing player in Jaden Ivey open in the corner. Now, Jaden Ivey's not the greatest shooter in the world, but in this case, he left Jaden Ivey open, so he had to rush to close out, and Jaden Ivey up and under him, and then shot a three from a weird angle, and it went in. That's not a high-level shot, and that's a shot that really don't go in like that. So in this case, with Jaden Ivey and all them, when you put them in this situation, it's a scenario of Mike Brown just goes to the press conference and he talks about that situation, and then he's fired the next day. But the thing is, when you ask De'Aaron Fox says he didn't ask for him to leave. He didn't ask for anything. He thought it was just a normal day. But then when he got on the plane, and then they fired him behind closed doors. They didn't even fire him behind closed doors. They called him when he was in the car going to the airport to travel to this next game in LA. So it's like, that's how you treat the most successful head coach in your franchise in the last 20 years. And it's like you deserve to be in the toilet after that. Now, I watched a lot of film and a lot of different things about a few different, about the Sacramento Kings in preparation for this video. I have a podcast over, it's Generational Wealth in Sports over at Invest TV. Please go watch it. I would typically talk about it on there, but it's a situation of I had to come on here to talk about this because it's like we haven't been on in a little bit. So I came to talk about this with you guys. So with that being said, I think the Sacramento Kings in this current position that they're in, they have to make a decision here. And I think that the ownership in the team should probably make a different decision. Maybe they should be the ones they got to do something different here. Because this obviously isn't working with whatever ownership they have. It's not. And then they put together a team that wasn't even supposed to be that great altogether anyway. Then they show they have potential, show they have a shot at actually being decent. And then they proceed to do nothing with it. So from there, we need a team that can. You got to be able to field a roster, I should say. Because it's absolutely baffling and disgusting that they decided to treat that man this way and try to scapegoat him for a situation when they traded for a one-dimensional player in DeMar DeRozan. No disrespect to Debo, but the thing is, DeMar DeRozan is a small forward that can't shoot threes in 2025. That's not something that you should have on your team. It's not something that you should really be trying to make into something in 2024, you know? And it's like you traded for a non-shooting guy and then traded off a pretty decent shooter in turn. So it's like you lose some of the identity that you guys had because DeMar DeRozan isn't a better defender than Harrison Barnes. At worst, they're equal. At best, they're equals. He's not a better shooter whatsoever than Harrison Barnes. Now, thing is, I guess if you consider mid-range shooting as shooting, in the case of like jump shot stuff, right? Then you could say maybe. But the thing is, that's the only type of shooting that DeMar DeRozan can do, and that's often in the post. And it has to be a shot creation shot, not a pass the ball around shot, you know? And that's not really workable. And actually, that might be the kind of this whole thing is the Sacramento Kings were trying to steal shit from Golden State and steal stuff from Golden State like it was worth shit, and then try to make it something. But hey, am I telling the truth or am I not? But you guys could discuss that in the comments below. I hope that Sacramento one day, and maybe hopefully hope to God that they can trade ownership up somewhere and then start anew. But it is what it is from there. I thank you guys for listening to me talking about this today again. If you join me, I appreciate you guys for watching, because even when I take these big long hiatuses, like I ain't swear I did a video in almost a year, and you guys come back and watch it every time, and I thank you. I wish I could, I'm gonna try to get on more this year. And it's like, I can make that a New Year's resolution. I'm gonna try to get on here and I'm gonna talk for you guys more. All right, thank you. I appreciate you.